Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrindi ki, ISKCON BBT Jagat Harya, Srila Prabhupada ki, Sri Caitanya Caritamrita ki. Oh, glories to the assembled devotees. Oh, glories to the assembled devotees. Oh, glories to the assembled devotees. Oh, glories to Sri Sri Guru and Gauranga. So today we are celebrating the auspicious day of Shiva Ratri, celebration of Lord Shiva. I know some people celebrated it last night, yesterday. So I will be talking about Lord Shiva, and the slokas from the Caitanya Caritamrita fit like a glove into what I'm going to say, so it is very appropriate. So we are starting with text. Which text is it? Up there. What text? 68. 68. Oh, and 69. Okay, it's all about Advaita Prabhu, who happens to be Sadashiva, an partial incarnation of Lord Shiva and Lord Narayan. Jaya Jaya Sri Caitanya Jaya Nityananda. Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Jaya Jaya Sri Caitanya Jaya Nityananda. Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Text 68. Lokira nistara hetu karena chintana. Kemate sabha lokira hai bitarana. Lokira nistara hetu karena chintana. Kemate sabi lokira hai bitarana. Lokira nistara hetu korena chintana. Kemate sabha lokira hai bitarana. Shall I do the next one now and we'll do the whole four? Maybe, yeah. Krishna Ravatari Karina Bhakti Restara. Tabita Sakala Lokira Hoibi Nistara. Lokira. All the people. Nishtara hetu, for the matter of deliverance. Karena, does. Chintana, contemplation. Kemate, how. These. Suba, all. Lokira, of the people in general. Heibi, will become. Tarana, liberation. Seeing the condition of the world, he began to think seriously of how all these people could be delivered from the clutches of Maya. So, next sloka. Sri Advaita Acharya Prabhu thought, if Krishna himself appears to distribute the cult of devotional service, then only will liberation be possible for all people. Purport. Just as a condemned person can be relieved by a special favour of the chief executive head, the president or king, so the condemned people of this Kali Yuga can be delivered only by the Supreme Personality of Godhead himself, or a person especially empowered for this purpose. Sri Advaita Acharya Prabhu desired that the Supreme Personality of Godhead advent himself to deliver the fallen souls of this age. So, as we've been reading about Sri Advaita Acharya Prabhu, that in the sloka before, he felt pain to see all the people without Krishna consciousness simply merging in material sense enjoyment. So he sat by the banks of the river Ganga and he performed tapasya, and he offered tulsi leaves to the water, and he was crying loudly, "O Supreme Personality of Lord of Godhead, please advent yourself." And Lord Caitanya actually explains that it's because of his prayers that he descended. So he's an incarnation of Lord Siva. So Lord Siva also is a very sentient being, that he's concerned about the welfare of the population in general. But Lord Siva has a special function in this material world. So people in general don't understand quite what Lord Shiva's function is. That they are celebrating Shiva Ratri today for some different purpose, different reasons, that Lord Shiva married Parvati, and that is all-encompassing, and that sometimes they misunderstand the fact that Lord Shiva is like the second Godhead next to Krishna, like Lord Krishna's God and Lord Shiva's God, or is even Krishna's regarded to be less than Lord Shiva. He's the supreme because, from their understanding, that he is the ruler of the universe in the form of the mode of passion, mode of ignorance, and in Kali Yuga, this is the main predominant modes. There's very little mode of goodness. But in actual fact, Lord Shiva is subservient to Krishna, Govinda, because actually Lord Shiva has no independent initiative. He's just a guna avatar. He's been given a job to do, and that is his agenda, just to carry out his allotted duties. So it's just like in the Brahma Samhita, it describes Lord Shiva, Chiram, Yata, Dadari, Vikari, Visesha, Yogat, Sanjayate, Nahitata, Pitta, Gasti, Heto, Yat, Shambhutam, Apitata, Samapaiti, Karyat, Govindamari Pusham, Tamaham, Vajami. So, by the action of acid on milk, you get curd. We do that every week. We get curd. So when you got curd, what do you do with curd? You cook it and you have curd. You can't do anything else with curd. But if you have milk, just like Uddhava was boiling the milk this morning, boil it down, making burfi. You boil the milk and it becomes solid, put a bit of sugar in it, you got burfi. Or if you want, you can separate it, weigh, and make yogurt from it. You can get the cream, you can make butter, make ghee, so many different varieties. So Lord Vishnu is described to be like that. He's the acting agent that creates the curd, right? So therefore, Lord Shiva is just a product of Vishnu. To clarify a little bit, we talk about 64 qualities that are there in this material universe. And of the 64 qualities, the Jiva Tattvas, how many? Remember? Can't remember. Yeah, it's hard. Sometimes it's the percentages, but it's 50 out of 64. So the Jiva Tattva's got 50 qualities that are all there, inherent. Not all at the same time, but they're still there. But Lord Shiva, of course, has those 50 qualities in a more abundant fashion that is very much endowed, because being the guna avatar incarnation of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, so he carries these qualities in full. Plus he has another 5 qualities. So the Jiva Tattva has 50 qualities, Lord Shiva has 55 qualities. So Therefore, he's not Jiva Tattva, even though he's in charge of the mode of ignorance and the mode of Tamagun and Rajagun. And of course, Lord Vishnu has how many qualities? I hate to be a sort of headmaster at school or teacher. 60, yeah, 60 out of the 64. So Lord Vishnu's got 5 extra qualities. So he's superior to Lord Shiva, that is more, as we spoke, that he is so much, has so much potency in the control of this material universe. And then, of course, the other 4 qualities pertain to Krishna, that even Lord Vishnu is attracted by Krishna due to the fact that Krishna has such a beautiful, wonderful form that it attracts everybody, and that his flute playing is just so astronomical that with his different notes on the flute he can attract all the different living entities in this whole material universe. And he performs so many amazing pastimes, and that you can't actually compare his pastimes with anything. And then he's got so many amazing devotees, the gopis and the gopas and the elderly gopas and gopis, who are just completely, totally attached to the service of Krishna in an ecstatic mood. So that is not the position of Lord Vishnu, whose devotees are attracted to him in aura reverence. Yeah. So, so we've had these qualities. So therefore, the Supreme Lord manifests himself as the Guna avatar, Lord Shiva for Tamagun, under the name of Shambhu. So, because this material existence at this particular point in time, this creation in Kali Yuga, is in Tamagun, Shambhu, other name is Rudra. He presides in this material creation as a predominating deity, right? Because the Rajas and the Tamas, we have to deal with that every day, so therefore we're involved. So Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Maharaj also states that he is, now this is in his terminology from Bhaktisiddhanta Maharaj is very sophisticated, that he is the personality of the destruction principle in the form of time. Because he's an expansion of pure Godhead, he's the master of all the jivas, and accepts the post of taking control of Rajagun and Tamagun. So we have to understand that because Lord Shiva is in charge of these gunas, sometimes it appears like he's become overwhelmed by these gunas. But being the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he's always pure, so he's never overwhelmed, just seemingly like it is. That is the case, but Lord Shiva is beyond these gunas. So his function actually is to teach Dharma and Tantric Shastras to these jivas according to their modes, particularly in the Tamagun and Rajagun, as we're saying. So the thing about Lord Shiva, he's called Asatosh. So do you know what that means, Radha? Asatosh. You know everything. He's easily angered and easily pleased. So he's easily pleased by the worship and performance of austerities, because he performs austerities himself, and he's very happy to see people perform the austerities, and he's very generous and he's very merciful to these people. So he's called Vaishnav Yata Shambhu, and he's also the greatest of all Vaishnavas, because actually he tries to direct these souls in the mode of ignorance, mode of passion, towards Krishna when they're ready. So before that, they need to be purified. So this is how he works. So he's he's described as being the most glorious of all the devotees. So in the beginning, Lord Shiva, he emerged from the forehead of Lord Brahma. So back in the beginning of creation, when the stem was white hot, full of living entities who wanted to break out and enjoy in this material universe, Brahma had to create the bodies, so he needed progenitors, someone to create the bodies. So first ones to come out of his psyche, out of his body, were the 4 Kumaras, these sages. But they refused. They said, our business is actually to worship Vasudeva and go back to the spiritual realm. And they refused to get any older than 5 years old. So they stayed 5 years old, so they couldn't possibly mature and procreate. So Lord Brahma became very angry, frustrated with their attitude. And because of this anger, Lord Shiva was born out of his forehead. So all these different sages and saints were born from different parts of his body. It's quite fascinating. It's in the 3rd canto there in the 12th chapter. So Lord Shiva, this bright red and blue baby, and red was passion and blue was ignorance. So Lord Shiva's crying to Lord Brahma, what do I do? What is my position here on this in this universe? So Lord Brahma said, well, you can take residence in the heart, in the air of life, in the sky, in the sea water, in fire, fierce winds, in the earth, and in penances and austerities. So Lord Shiva is an embodiment of these qualities, although he's not manifesting like we said. But the fact is that wherever anger is springing up from lust and hankering, it's a manifestation of what we call the Rudra principle. So in the heart, Rudra principle in the heart. And so when this manifestation of anger manifests within the heart, then it becomes further manifested through the senses, like the eyes, the hands and the legs. So it's said that sometimes when one gets angry, he has red hot eyes, his eyes are blazing, or the hands start shaking and the legs kick out. So this manifests in that way. And that's a manifestation of what we call the Rudra principle. So also with the life airs in the body, the chest begins to heave when we're angry. That's a manifestation of Rudra in the life airs, or the activity of breathing. And the Rudra principle is also there in nature, in the fierce winds, or when you see stormy seas, the angry seas, that's also Rudra principle. Inundation of the earth, the floods, that's also, and the extreme heat of the sun, or it's described, Prabhupada describes the extreme coldness of the moon. So how do we see that? That when, maybe if I haven't quite understood that, but if we go to Antarctica and it's cold, we go to a cold place and the moon comes up, and then it's described that the moon even gets colder. So that's the Shiva Rudra principle. So also the yogis and the renunciates, they perform these austerities, and as we know, Lord Shiva is very generous to these people and gives them what they want. But then if they perform the austerities and they get their power and they become subject to the Rudra principle, that the anger develops within their heart, then their austerities, the Rudra principle takes over their austerities in the form of anger and passion. Just like one example is Durvasa Muni. So he was a great yogi, and he was very, very proud of his penances or austerities, but he picked a quarrel with a devotee. He picked a quarrel with Ambarish. Yeah, Ambarish was just breaking a codicy, and Durvasa just happened to turn up just before he was to break Ekadasi, it insisted on having a bath, and Devasa, being who he is, took his time to have the bath, whether it was deliberate or not. So Ambarish was in a quandary. He'd been fasting for a year, and he was thinking, if I don't break my fast now, according to the injunctions, this whole austerity is totally wasted. And he was performing this austerity for the benefit of his citizens. He always did everything for the benefit of a Supreme Personality of Godhead. And as the king and ruler, he looked after the citizens. So he said, sip a little bit of water. That's what the Brahmin said. Sip a bit of water. So that's breaking fast, not breaking a fast. So he sipped some water, and then when Devasa came back, all hell broke loose. What? You've broken the fast? You didn't wait for me? That is the greatest offence. I'm so insulted. He pulled the hair out of his head and threw it on the ground. This big demon appeared, and it was like he was going to devour the whole universe. He was going to kill Ambarish. But then Krishna saw that, and he summoned his Sudarshan chakra, because Ambarish was very tolerant. He's very, whatever comes, he's just praying to Lord Krishna. So the Sudarshan chakra it vanquished the demon, and then went after Devasa. And Devasa fled. He used his mystic powers to fly to the heavenly planets and beseech Indra, can you help me? Indra said, I can't do anything. And he went higher to Lord Brahma, and he actually fled out of this whole material universe. Isn't that amazing that he pierced the shells of the material universe? It must be a special way that he knew to get out. And he went to Vaikuntha, and Lord Vishnu, our Lord Narayan, said, well, you know, you really got yourself into a big problem there in that material universe. The only way you can get out of it is to ask forgiveness for Maharaj Ambarish. So he asked forgiveness. So that was, he lived again. He's performed many pastimes here in this material universe, very colourful personalities. It's nice to do some plays around Devasa Muni. Everybody likes to play a Devasa Muni character. So, anyway, so Lord Shiva, he gives this austerity. So he's the, you know, if you perform the austerity, so if you manifest any anger within the heart, that Rudra principle. So as devotees, it's nice to be aware of all these factors of the Rudra principle, and know that whenever we lose it, sometimes then we're under the sway of Lord Shiva. I just heard from someone, I think it might have been Ram yesterday, was that you, Prabhu, that was saying that if you see bats in the evening, then you know that Lord Shiva's around? Was that? Someone told me that, so it sounds great anyway, so because we know that sometimes Lord Shiva manifests around twilight, so you have to be careful so not to get trapped up by this Rudra principle. So Lord Brahma then approached Lord Shiva, said, well, the 4 Kumaras, my sons, they don't want to procreate, can you please procreate the universe? So then Lord Shiva agreed. So he was given 11 names of Rudra, and my assumption is because we see in the Bhagavatam there's 11 Rudras on the cover. Which canto is that? That's one of the cantos. You see 11 Rudras, 5th canto, part 2, is it? 11 Rudras there. So there's 11 Rudras, and he was given 11 wives. So then he began to procreate the universe. All these many Rudras look like Lord Shiva, red, blue, very fierce, ferocious, eyes burning. They start to appear all over the universe. He had sons and grandsons and many great-grandsons, and they populated the whole universe. They were all angry and frustrated and mad, and they started to create havoc throughout the whole universe. And even Lord Brahma was afraid of him. At one stage they attacked Lord Brahma. So then Lord Brahma said, Rudra Prabhu, please settle down, don't create anymore, just meditate on the Supreme Personality of Godhead and I'll arrange for the creation to happen. So it's a very beautiful description of that in the 3rd canto, chapter 12. So then Lord Shiva, he started to perform penances and austerities, tapasya, So this is more often than not you see Lord Shiva meditating under the tree, and he's meditating on Supreme Personality of Godhead, and he's meditating on Lord Krishna, his Vaishnav Sambhu, his greatest Vaishnav. So seeing Lord Shiva in this sort of like peaceful state of mind, of meditation, it's sometimes people misconstrue that this is the form of Lord Shiva, this is the supreme form, this is the path. Just like it's very attractive, the same as Buddhism. The Buddha's meditating under the tree, and people want to simulate that sort of divine ecstasy that it appears that these great divine personalities are emanating. But actually, it's not the prescribed method for worship. They are not the supreme persons. They are just performing a function. Once again, as I said, it's a particular function that they have to do. But other people will say, if they're knowledgeable, that they'll say, oh, in the Ramayana, it said that Lord Ram worshipped Lord Shiva, which he did. He worshipped Lord Shiva there, and Srila Prabhupada describes that Lord Ram worshipped Lord Shiva in the mood that here is my greatest devotee, I'll worship him as my great devotee, in the same manner as Lord Krishna worshipped Siddhartha Brahmana. A story I'll just very briefly, Siddhartha Brahmana was, they were school friends. They met in Mathura, or they met when Krishna went to Gurukul, and he became very close to Siddhartha. And as it turned out, Siddhartha happened to be a very, very poor Brahmana. He could hardly keep body and soul together. He just didn't manage to actually have any material assets. And his wife was getting frustrated. He said, look at Lord Krishna, why don't you just ask him for something? And he was very, very, embarrassed to do that. And he said, well, I'll have to take him something. So what did he take him? All he had was chip rice. Yeah, it was a handful of chip rice, which is the lowest class rice. And he wrapped it up in his cloth and he went to Lord Krishna. But when Lord Krishna was sitting Dwarka with all his opulences, all his queens and all his entourage and everything, he saw Siddhartha Brahmana. He immediately got off his throne and put Siddhartha Brahmana up on the throne, started bathing his feet and worshipping him with prayers and mantras. And he sort of, because he's Supreme Personality of Godhead, he knew Siddhartha brought him a gift. He said, oh, you've brought me something. And Siddhartha Brahmana is so embarrassed, he just said, well, I don't know if I've brought you anything at all. Oh, yes, you have, give me a look, and he grabbed the rice and he started to eat the chip rice. He said, oh, this is so wonderful, I could just about give away a whole universe on one grain. And then Lakshmi's going, stop eating, you're going to give away everything. You're going to give away the whole universes, and yourself you won't have anything. Stop eating these grains. So this is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, so he worships the Brahmanas. So Lord Shiva is magnanimous though. So he understands his position about the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He's always worshipping Krishna, and he's always worshipping Lord Vishnu. So sometimes Lord Vishnu asks him to perform some extraordinary tasks. So at one point in time, the fascinating story in the 8th canto about the demons and the demigods churning this ocean of milk in one of the lokas to get the nectar of immortality. That was a pastime. So just to include Lord Shiva's part was that when they were churning the ocean, all these wonderful things started to come out, like the Sudarshan chakra and the three-headed elephant for King Indra before the nectar. But when they were churning, they also got the poison. So this poison is called hala. This dark poison started to just spew out of the ocean, and they were wondering, what is this? And they could tell that it was actually deadly poison. Not only was it encompassing the whole area they were, but it was going up throughout the universe, just kept going up and up and up, and it was very scary. So they prayed to Lord Vishnu, and Lord Vishnu went to Lord Shiva and asked, can you help? Can you help control this poison? So for the sake of humanity and saving mankind, because it looked like the universe was almost going to come under total destruction, Lord Shiva went there and he got the ocean and he swelled up. He took all that poison from the ocean and he condensed it into the palm of his hand. Okay, imagine the strength of that poison in the palm of his hand, all condensed in there, and he swallowed it. It had to go somewhere. And so it went to his throat, and that's why his throat turned blue, bluish black colour. They call him the blue-throated one. So that's another name for him, Nilakanta, that's the blue-throated person, and it's actually enhanced his beauty. So also, while he was doing that, tiny few drops of that poison spilled out onto the sand, and who took that poison? Scorpions, all the serpents, the spiders, the funnel webs, the redbacks. The Aussies got some. We're in. So, so that's where all the poisonous, venomous insects and reptiles got their poison from. So Lord Shiva, he's very compassionate, as we said, for humanity, and because he's in charge at Tamagun and Rajagun, for the benefit of those people who are in the, as described by Srila Prabhupada, they're in the darkest regions in the mode of ignorance, then in order to attract them, Lord Shiva, he goes to the crematoriums and he goes and puts the ashes of dead bodies on his, over his body, and then he wears garlands of skulls, and he also drapes venomous serpents around his body. So to get these souls in Tamagun and Rajagun to fix their minds on attaining some platform of purity. So Lord Shiva, as I said, that he's Ashutosh, so people are very much attracted to Lord Shiva because, hey, we get benediction, Lord Shiva. The idea behind benedictions is to elevate you to the mode of goodness. But, of course, the people in the material world, they misuse this facility, and they consider Lord Shiva just like the best of the demigods because he's the easiest one to approach for material benedictions, and so they try to obtain benedictions from him. That's, of course, why Lord Shiva is so popular in, wherever the Vedic culture is being practiced, because he will give benedictions to people, but if they worship Lord Vishnu, that he's known as Hara, that one who takes away, because not only does he not give you the benediction that you want, he gives you what you really need, which is devotional service. So to perform your devotional service, you might have to lose your material assets, right? So people go, oh no, I don't want that. There's that lovely story about Srila Prabhupada on the train that Guru Das was telling us about, that they were coming back from Punjab to Delhi, and they were in a compartment, and there was 5 sannyasis and Srila Prabhupada. They were all discussing different subject matters, and it was the job, either Guru Das, I think Guru Das, he was the bodyguard. He was a really heavy guy, elbow people out of the way if they wanted to bother Prabhupada. But somehow or other, these 2 students, they got in the carriage. They, edged their way in through one little crack in the door, and he's pushing the door, and they're still in. And they're looking at Srila Prabhupada, right? And Srila Prabhupada said, so, what can I do for you? And they go, Srila Prabhupada, we want your blessing. They all want the blessing. That's a material blessing, right? So Srila Prabhupada looked at him I bless you that you look like these people. You shave your heads, you put on robes, and you worship Krishna. They ran out the door. That's not what they wanted. They took off and stayed. So anyway, Lord Shiva, he gives the benedictions. So we've already heard about Devasa Muni, and one of the greatest people in the history of the universe that got the benediction from Lord Shiva was Ravana and Kumbhakarna, the one that fought with Ram. And he performed such great austerities to please Lord Shiva that Lord Shiva was obliged to give him the benedictions, so much so that no one but Lord Ram could actually destroy him. And then Ravana's going around so puffed up, I'm the greatest, and even Lord Brahma was afraid of him and was uncomfortable with him anyway. So he was so puffed up, and then he heard about Sita, Ram's wife. So he actually went and kidnapped Lord Sita, and that was the beginning of his destruction. And so even though he had all the powers and all the abilities of Lord Shiva, when he was fighting with Lord Ram, Parvati said, "Oh, your devotee's fighting with Ram there, aren't you going to come to his help?" Because Lord Shiva sometimes has been known to come to his devotees' help, even to fight Lord Krishna. And he said, not in this way, not in this case. Lord Ram is the Supreme Personality of God, there's nothing I can do. So then, of course, Ravana was vanquished. So one time, Lord Shiva actually did have to fight with Krishna. He fought to defend one of his devotees. Anybody have an idea who it was? Fought with Banasura. Banasura had 1,000 arms, and he was a descendant of, he was the grandson of Maharaj Bali. He was the grandson of Prahlad Maharaj, so the genealogy goes back, is related to the demigods. He was on this planet, and somehow or other, he had a beautiful daughter who saw a picture of one of Krishna's sons, Adi-lila. Someone drew a picture. She said, "There's someone in my life I'm so attracted to." And then one of the artists, a girlfriend, drew a picture of Adi-lila, one of Krishna's grandsons, or sons, I can't remember, I think grandson. And it was so beautiful. She said, "Yes, he's the one." So this lady had mystic power. She went to Dwarka and she actually kidnapped Adi-lila, brought him to the quarters of that young lady, I forget the name. And then when Banasura found out that there was a man in the quarters there, I don't care if it's Krishna's son, he captured him and threw him in prison. And it was a big fight. Actually, it was a really amazing fight. Adi-lila sort of wiped out most of Banasura's army, and Banasura had to use these mystic ropes, these snake ropes, to bind Adi-lila, and he couldn't move. So then when Krishna found out, so Banasura has he was a devotee of Lord Shiva. He had so many austerities that performed. He was practically undefeatable. No one could fight him. They say he used to go to the ocean with his 1,000 arms. He used to beat the ocean up, right, just to sort of out of frustration. So then Krishna went there and he besieged Banasura's city. Banasura became so mad. And then he brought his army out, and his army just got completely smashed. So then Lord Shiva came to help his devotees. Now it's said in the purport there, Prabhupada describes that Banasura, he was a devotee of Lord Shiva, but specifically Lord Shiva went there to perform the pastime of pleasing Lord Krishna and having a big battle. But also he was driven by Yogamaya. So Yogamaya arranges all the pastimes of Krishna in Vrindavan. So she arranged this pastime where Lord Shiva became so excited, okay, I'm going to fight Krishna to save Banasura, and he brought Caitanya, and he brought all the hobgoblins and the pisachas and the rakshasas and the so forth and so on, all the fierce-looking demons with one eye and red hair. And it was a big fight that took place. And it was one-on-one. Caitanya fought with Adi-lila, and he got beaten, he ran away, and Lord Shiva was fighting with Krishna, and they were fighting with trees and fire weapons, and they threw mountain weapons at each other, and nothing was working. So Lord Shiva threw Pushapastra weapon. That's the favourite Lord Shiva weapon, and Lord Krishna counteracted it with his Narayanastra weapon, and then he threw the yawning weapon at Lord Shiva. So Lord Shiva's going, he's just yawning. And while he was yawning, then Krishna proceeded to slay all of his army. And then he found Banasura, and he started to fight with Banasura. He was so mad, but then progressively Krishna cut off all of his arms, 1,000 arms with his arrows, and left 4 arms. And then because he was a great-great-grandson of Prahlad Maharaj, he spared his life, because Lord Shiva actually begged, please save the life of this person, this very prominent person. And Banasura surrendered to Lord Shiva, and then brought forward Aniruddha in a wedding chariot, and they took Aniruddha and his bride back to Dwarka. And so that was a very, and all the residents welcomed Aniruddha. It was a great festival. So Srila Prabhupada gives a warning here that how many more have I got? I can't talk about Vrikashura. I'm running out upon Draka. So we're running out of time. So the fact is that Lord Shiva gave so many benedictions to these people, like Vrikashura. He started cutting off his own flesh and offering it into the fire, right? Om Shivaya Namaha. It's a nice play, isn't it? Boom, flesh in the fire. Om Shivaya Namaha. More flesh in the fire. And then he ran out of flesh. He was going to cut off his own head, right? He had his head, he's going to cut it off. Om Shivaya Namaha. Lord Shiva said, okay, what do you want? I'll give you whatever you want, right? So, how about you give me some boon that whose ever head I touch will just shatter it to pieces, right? And Lord Shiva said, okay, what can I do? And of course, the demon Vrikashura saw Parvati, Lord Shiva's wife. He said, oh, she's beautiful. If I get rid of Lord Shiva, then I can have her. So of course he started to chase Lord Shiva with his finger, right, everywhere. Lord Shiva's running everywhere. So he ran to Lord Vishnu. And then of course Vrikashura appeared, and Lord Vishnu said, what? Lord Shiva can't do that. He's just fooling you. No, you're going to make a big fool of yourself. You're going to go there, everybody's going to be watching you. You're going to touch Lord Shiva with your finger and nothing's going to happen. Just imagine the embarrassment you're going to feel, for a person like you. Shame is worse than death. So think about it. What you should do is just go in the corner over there and try it first before you actually try it on anybody, just to see if it works. Yeah, great idea. Boom, And then he blew himself up, and then Lord Vishnu said, well, Lord Shiva, just be careful on your benedictions, what you give to people. But it just goes on. There's so many other ones there. So anyway, Lord Shiva, not only that, but he has compassion for the living entities, and he's also a great soul. So whenever Krishna comes to the universe, every day Lord Brahma, Lord Shiva's always wanting to go and see Lord Krishna. One time he went down, come to Vrindavan, and he wasn't allowed into the sacred area of the Seva Kunj. And they said, no, you have to be a gopi to do that. So Krishna Kirtan's listening carefully, so please correct me if I'm wrong, okay? So no, you can't do that, so you have to be a gopi. So they took him to a well where you bathe in the well, in a lake, I forget what that lake was, and you become a gopi. That happened a couple of times in Krishna Lila. So Lord Shiva became a gopi, but then he still had all the snakes around him, like that. So gopis go, oh, what sort of gopi are you? Like, I'm a Shiva gopi. And then they realised it was Lord Shiva. They said, oh, no, you can't take part in these pastimes here. It's only for certain surrendered souls who are, got the mercy of Krishna. So they gave Lord Shiva the job of looking after Seva Kunj. So is that why we have the Caritamrita there that Lord Shiva protects? Is that the same thing? Yeah, so we have a sort of place where Lord Shiva resides, and it's like, it's a sacred place, so we've got a, we've created a building where Lord Shiva can reside over Manasaganga, and it's said that for those who go to Vrindavan, best to approach Lord Shiva first, get his mercy, and then you can approach Lord Krishna. So Shiva guards the Caritamrita, and devotees people approach him, his devotees approach him for benedictions, but if someone is seriously looking for the truth, he will guide them to Krishna. He will take them to Krishna. He will show them the principles of bhakti. Sometimes he can show you in different ways. Sometimes he's very merciful, and he can be very merciful by giving you a swift kick out of where you're not supposed to be, and sort of you land right in the lap of a devotee, and you take up devotional service. So he's very pleased that when he sees devotees chanting, and because he knows that that is the highest goal of life, just like Bhaktivinoda Thakur sings that beautiful song we sing in the evening, Shiva Sukha Narada Premigata Gata. That Lord Shiva and Sukadev Goswami, they're all dancing in ecstasy, their voices are choked up, gata gata, they can hardly utter, they're in so much ecstasy, they're chanting Krishna, Krishna. So this is what Lord Shiva wants. He really wishes that the whole universe would be chanting like that, and for that purpose he's performing all these penances and austerities in Kailash for the benefit of all the living entities. So he's great Vaishnav Sambhu. So that is the proper understanding of Lord Shiva, that on one hand we have to avoid that, what was I talking about, that Shiva principle, the Rudra principle, where he's resident in all those places where there's anger, but then we respect him as being the greatest devotee, and he's always of great help to the devotees if we think of him in this manner. As Srila Prabhupada said, there are the prayers that we chant about Lord Shiva in the Brahma Samhita, and he's mentioned in all, and so that's fair. That's all we really need to do, that we pay lip service to Lord Shiva as a great devotee. It's not like we have to worship him outright, because actually our sampradayas, we just chant Hare Krishna and all the demigods are satisfied. Thank you very much. Any questions or comments? We all good? Jai. All glory Srila Prabhupada.